Hi there. Welcome back. I have the dreaded after lunch slot, but I promise to try to move it right along and not have you go to sleep on me. Today I'm going to talk about Wi-Fi roaming. And I call this Wi-Fi roaming secrets revealed because I did a online series with the same name and figured I didn't have to reinvent the name. So I am the small net builder guy. That's an old photo, so I've aged a little bit since then. I spent 20 plus years, as Fanny said before, working at Teradyne, building big iron mixed signal test systems. We would build these multi-million-dollar multi-rack test systems, all to test little teeny-weeny little devices. Sometimes I felt it wasn't really fair throwing all those electronics at such small things, but such as it was. And then 20 more years since leaving Teradyne, leaving corporate life, testing and reviewing consumer networking gear. You can tell by the hair, I've been around for a while. I was there before there was a consumer networking business, tested the first routers, tested the first Linksys router, tested the first consumer, quote, consumer router. Anybody remember what that was? The UMAX router? One port WAN, one port LAN? But anyway, I've been doing this a while. Doesn't mean I know everything, but at least I know enough to get myself in trouble. Is there magic in Wi-Fi roaming? Well, are there any marketing people here? Come on. There must be a couple plants somewhere. All right, anyway. Anyone who reads Small Net Builder knows that I have a little bit of a jaundiced view, a little bit of like to poke at the marketing folks. And certainly in the consumer mesh business, there is a lot of creative marketing that goes on. And one of the reasons why I did the series on the Wi-Fi secrets is because if you read, if you look at the product boxes and you look at the write-ups, you would think that mesh Wi-Fi is like the Wi-Fi concierge. It gently guides your clients from point to point around the home with magic and smoothly and seamlessly and everything. And those of us in the business know that that's not really the case. So there is no magic. Stations are in control, and APs have some ability to control what goes on with the stations, but they can't. If a station doesn't really want to move, it's not going to move. So today, some of the newer things that stations that the APs can do is they can do K and V, and although we saw R this morning with Dennis, seldom in home do you deal with R. And also in consumer mesh, it's not really about fast roaming. It's basically, could you please roam the device, period? I would really like my device to move to the AP, to the mesh node that it's closest to. And that is a challenge in many cases. So when we talk about speed in sort of the consumer world, it's just, would you please not drop my Netflix connection when I'm streaming, or don't drop my FaceTime call as I move from the living room to the bedroom to have a more private chat. So we can do KV, 11K and V are used. They're not universally supported, but they are in use. And we'll see some of that in the captures. And our good old friends, deauths and disassociations are the primary tools, sort of RSSI-based tools that the AP can do. And also the AP can basically say it doesn't want to play. It can withhold or delay responses to probes. So it can answer on 5 first and see if the device takes the hint to go to 5, but that doesn't always happen. So anyway, there are some things that the APs can do. So the testbed. This is a simplified diagram. The R splitter matrix is not really one big thing. It's meant to replace all the complicated diagrams you've been looking at all morning. Basically, what this means is that everything on each side connected to that box is all connected together. It's one node. So the way this is set up is that we have 2 boxes. We're using 2 of the 3 boxes in this stack right now. We're using, actually for this demo, we're going to use Ethernet backhaul, not wireless backhaul. And because that gives us a little bit more dynamic range. And also this overall diagram is meant to show that we also can, by using one of the other boxes, we can put an Android station, a Windows laptop, whatever you want to put in there. There's my pointer. The other stations we have is we can do a Windows station and my favorite, which is the PAL 245. Up here is the synchro sniffer. The way that it's connected in this configuration is the synchro sniffer travels with the stations, because in my estimation, if the station doesn't see it, then it basically doesn't happen in terms of roaming, because the station, again, is in control. So we have the mesh nodes go in these two boxes, and to roam, we just cross-ramp attenuator 4 and attenuator 5. So one increases, one decreases. And you start them out as, for example, this the root node starts out at 0, and the other node usually 63 dB attenuation, and then move them. And we can roam back and forth. We can roam one direction. The script will do many different things. So that's basically it. Questions on the diagram? All right, good. Okay. This is what it looks like at the SmallNet Builder Labs at home. So you can see in this configuration, I have the Android device I used happened to be a Samsung Galaxy Tab A8. It's only a 1x1 N device, but it actually does support K and V. I was surprised to find. And a lot of the roaming a lot of the work that I did use the Netgear Orbi. We're not going to be today. I'm going to be demoing Google Wi-Fi, but we did use Netgear Orbi because it supports K and V. One of the main things of this is I really wanted to see, first of all, find out what devices support K and V, and also looking at what APs, what mesh nodes support it. For the Windows client, I actually used over here, the Windows station is this little Lenovo M600 machine, and there's an embedded Intel Wireless AC8260 mini card, and that is cabled. It has a cable connection to the splitter. It had a couple spare ports in the splitter, so I just cabled it in. So the only device that's using an over-the-air connection for station is the Samsung Galaxy. The PAL and the Windows station are direct cabled, so we get nice strong signals. Few words about my buddy the PAL. The octoScope guys will say they're not recommending the PAL, but I do. I love the PAL. They're not paying me to say that. I just, I've, in all the time I've been doing this stuff, I've used a lot of different devices. I had test partners of Azimuth. One of the first Azimuth systems was, I use that. And also I've used the Verilwave system. And of all of the professional, and I've also had access to other tools, wireless snippers and things like that. But in terms of bang for the buck, or in terms of flexibility, the PAL is really, it's a great tool. Why? Well, let's see. You could basically make it emulate anything you want. So you can control MIMO streams, 802.11 type, channel width, channel, MCS rate, and all these other lovely things. You can even set WMM priority, although I never mess with that. Guard intervals if you want to do those. But you can make it basically imitate anything. It's, as Fanny pointed out earlier, it's based on a real Qualcomm chipset. So this is, it's real life. The other thing I like about it, in more specific to roaming, is that it provides predictable and controllable roaming. One of the basic things I was taught when I was a Wii engineer was that when you're trying to test something, you can't have multivariables. It's usually good to have one thing fixed and vary one thing. And when you have an unknown behavior in a client, an unknown behavior in a mesh system, what do how do you know who's doing what? So basically, for the PAL, it has controlled behavior. You can set the roam threshold. This little box here, get over there. You can set the roam threshold, which is when to roam. You can then set the roam target, so where. And you also can set a band preference. So you can say, PAL, you figure it out. Or you can say, I'm going to have a preference of 2.4 or have a preference of 5. And the weakness that the PAL has right now in terms of more modern roaming is it only supports 11V and only one aspect of 11V, which is BSS transition management. It does not support K. The other thing with V is you can't enable it and disable it to see, to check how the system under test responds if you have V enabled and have it not enabled. This is just a close-up of the controls that I talked about. One of the things, not so much for roaming testing, but certainly for mesh testing, which I've done a lot of, is the enabling a specific BSSID. That is just golden when you're testing mesh systems, because at least the way that I test them, when I do tests where I want to make sure that I load each of the 3 nodes in, say, a 3-node mesh, I want to make sure that when I tell the station to go to that AP and that channel, that's exactly where it goes. And so the BSSID lock is great for that. The other thing Fanny mentioned earlier is that, and again, we're not going to touch on this today, is the ability to do virtual stations. And not so much for roaming, but some of the capacity testing scripts that I'm working on will certainly be using that. And also some of the band steering testing that I'm working on is also going to involve virtual stations. The other thing that's great about PAL is you can see what's going on. It gives you visibility into the roam, or into the ability. You can see not only the control, where do you go? You can see not only the control RSSI, but you can also look at the data RSSI in each of the chains. You can look at congestion, and I love congestion. I mean, this is gold, and especially, again, not so much for roaming, but for capacity testing or anything where you're really trying to figure out, answer the question of, is the behavior of the system changing due to load? It's good to know what the load is. And this is the congestion number that the Qualcomm gives you is really on the over-the-air loading. And you will also see that change too, because as the link degrades, as the roam gets towards the roam point, you'll see congestion rise. And of course, we also can measure throughput. It also tells you what it's seeing. And the roams I'll be doing today will be with an iPerf stream running. I'm not trying to overload it. I just do 5 megabits a second just to tickle the channel so that I can get some idea of when the traffic drops. And then, of course, down at the very bottom, you have status, association status, the channels, the BSSID, etc., and then all the other stats for the actual station. And again, if there are multiple virtual stations involved, then you just would see multiples of those down there. Oops, let's go back. So the roaming test sequence. This is all done through a Python script using the APIs that octoScope has developed. So the first thing I do at the very beginning, once I initialize the systems, I start capturing, because I want to see the initial, everything from the initial association to the end. So cradle to grave for the whole roam. So I start the synchro sniffer packet capture, set the first attenuator to 0, set the other attenuator to a larger value. So I make sure that the station connects to the root node. Associate it, start the traffic, roam the device by cross-ramping the attenuators. And then what I do is I monitor, I stop the roam at that point and just sit for 10 seconds and look. Because I've seen cases in which, especially when running traffic, it's not really going to move, or it takes a while to move. So I wait for a little bit. So you'll see some pauses in the curves when we do that. Then we reverse the roam, or not. The script will do it either way. And then we monitor the post-roam again, stop the traffic, stop the synchro sniffer, capture everything, close the log. And then the thing I didn't put on here is we send it to the Magic PCAP tool that you've seen some screenshots of, but you'll get to see live and in action. So here's the demo, simplified diagram. You've seen this before. Again, we're using Ethernet backhaul in these cases. Simple setup, attenuator 4, attenuator 5, cross ramp them. The synchro sniffer sits here, so it watches everything that the PAL sees. And all the other attenuators to make sure that we're not getting any stray things are all set to 63. And one thing about the Google Wi-Fi is that KVNR are not supported. So this is sort of a pure, we can't use any of the advanced techniques. So this is sort of worst case, I guess, roaming. 11V is supported by the station, the PAL, but it doesn't come into play. So Google Wi-Fi, it's a dual band, which means 2 radios, one 2.4, one 5, 2x2, 11 AC. The radios are shared for front haul and back haul, so there's no dedicated backhaul connections, and it does not support KVNR. And this is one of the first Qualcomm-based design, as virtually all of them are. and aggressive price points. So Google has sold a lot of these suckers because they've been very aggressive on price. One of the things that the first thing the script does is, because again, you don't want to be entering this stuff manually. I'm lazy. We do an auto discovery, and I'm not going to do that as part of the demo because it just adds on to the time, and you'll just be watching stuff scroll by. But basically, it goes through and walks the PAL around and records what are the BSS IDs, what are the channels, and also what are the RSSIs that it sees for each of the radios. Now, what we'll see here, and this is the actual parameters that it found. So we see that it's setting both nodes. Box 3 is the root node. Box 2 is the the other node. And basically, both channels are set to the same. So 6 and 6 for 2.4 and 149 on 5. So it has the option of using either one of those for backhaul. But I also have seen Google Wi-Fi come up and use different channels in 2.4. So one of the nodes will be on one 2.4 channel and the other one will be on another. And since I only have, in my case, I only have one. Let's go back to the Synco sniffer. I mean, as Fanny described earlier, Synco sniffer can have as many PALs as you want virtually, but in my case, I'm using one PAL 2.4 and one PAL 5, so I can sniff one 2.4 channel and one 5 gigahertz channel. So in the case where Google Wi-Fi decides to do a different 2.4 channels, I could not capture all of those packets unless I added another 2.4 PAL. But once you add it, it can do it. All right. That's that. So let's switch over to the demo. So we're going to run the demo. May the demo gods be kind. So this is again, Python script, goes through, initializes everything. And again, this is the exciting part of the demo. This is the watching the paint dry as the things scroll by on the screen. But I promise it'll get a little bit more exciting. Not in a bad way, hopefully, in a minute. So it's waiting for the PAL to associate. That takes a little while. You can see it telling you what it's doing. So it's scanning some more. Scanning. Oh, not there yet. Still scanning. There we go. So now we flip over and watch the PAL. Another exciting part of the demo, you get to watch the PAL. But no, we can see the control RSSI. It starts out at about, well, actually, we can see what it is. So we're in the 40s. And I started, the Google Wi-Fi runs a little hot. And the PALs have sort of a maximum level of about -30, so you don't really want to overload them. So I added to start out with some attenuation. And I'm doing 3 dB steps per second. So it's relatively fast. So you can see it's already started to scan. So you can see down here now that the PAL is scanning. So it's already disconnected from this node. And by the way, DC00 is the root node, the 2.4 gig radio. I have a little cheat sheet I can pop up to keep track. So now it broke, it's associating. And see, traffic has gone to 0 and now traffic is back. One thing the script does is that iPerf is what I use for traffic, and iPerf isn't as robust as Chariot is in terms of making sure that it keeps running. iPerf will quit on you if it loses the connection fairly quickly. So one of the things the script does is if it sees the iPerf stream stop, it restarts it. So this script is not really aimed at doing the type of things that Dennis's did, right? It's not meant to be looking for 50 millisecond, even sort of sub-second roams. Because first of all, I'm only doing, although the captures are certainly going, the PAL telemetry, so I'm capturing the state of the PAL, that only happens once a second. So what I'm really interested in is what's happening, who's doing what during the roam. And the fact that it does roam, for me, is almost an after effect. Okay, I know it's going to roam, but I want to see, is it really concierging the station around? So it's rolling back now. Now it's scanning again. Associating. And we're back to DC00 again. I have to point that. Yep, there we are. And we're getting near the end, I promise. And actually you can see what's going on if you looked at this. Yeah, you can see, okay, scrolling. It's giving me the status. Stopping. Clean it up. Back over here. And now we go to the PCAP. So what Synchro Sniffer takes everything. These, of course, are synchronized. The PALs are synchronized very precisely using precision time protocol. The cap files are merged, and then the analysis tool. Basically, this is meant to be sort of the cliff notes for studying the ROM. All of you, I guess, a lot of hands went up when it was time to say who's ever used Wireshark. We know that the biggest challenge in Wireshark is separating the significant from the non-significant. And what this tool is aimed at doing is helping you do just that. So what is it telling me? Well, first of all, we can see that the blue dots are basically roaming events. So these are captures. And what I use for filters are basically I'm looking for authentications, associations, reassociations, deauths, and disassociations, plus any 11v, 11k events. So if I'm getting any action events, I'm also capturing those. And this filter basically puts a blue dot wherever it sees one of those things. And then the RSSI plot basically, I think, comes from QoS data. Mostly. Yeah, because we're just capturing headers because, we don't really care about the data. And so we're drawing the RSSI plot from looking at the QoS data packets, and then the blue dots are just basically a different filter on the same information. So we can see that this ROM was a channel 6, stayed on channel 6. It did not change bands. So as we came down here, there's channel 6, DC00, DC00, AC00, up to here, changed to E511, which is the 2.4 radio on the second AP. Sits there for a while because I did that 10 seconds of pause to see what happens, and then ramps back down again, and then comes back up, and then back to DC00. So this is a fairly classic, not sub-millisecond roam, but it's a roam from 2.4 on one node to 2.4 on the other. But what happened during this roam? Well, we can see authentications early on. Do we see anything interesting? We see some deauths. So at 103.23, which is we go up here and we can say, okay, where is 103.23? This is interesting because I've seen this as I've been running these captures. And maybe Google here? They won't put their hand up there. So what happens? So why is this happening? Again, is this intended behavior? We're associated to the 2.4 radio. The deauth is actually happening. There's a deauth being issued to the 5 gigahertz radio in the same node. So that it's not trying to deauth it from the node from the BSS that it's connected to. The deauthentication is actually happening. The 703A is the AP, and the 2C27 is the station. So for some reason, the first node, AP1, is trying to kick the client off, but it's doing it on the 5 gigahertz channel, 5 gigahertz band. And of course, it has no effect because it's not connected there, but that's interesting. Is that intended behavior? Is it a bug? I don't know, because I don't know what the designers intended. So anyhow, you can see that, so that's interesting, right? And by applying this filter fairly quickly, you can see. Now, here's the disassociation. So you can see at this point later on at minus 79. So that's 59636. So we go back up here, scroll around a little bit. 59636 is sort of where? Yeah, around there. So there's a dissociation. So, and then association request and sort of really as you'd expect. We didn't see, but what's interesting with this is we didn't see any attempts to steer it to 5, right? Of course, there can't be any, there's no K or no V involved, but we certainly didn't see any de-auths. The disassociation that occurred down here is down at a low level, but then the device does not attempt to authenticate or associate on 5. So the PAL, and the PAL is set, just to show you, go back. The PAL was set, the band preference is auto, right? So it was set for a roam threshold of -70, a target threshold of -60, and then a band preference of auto. So, kind of interesting. The other thing is that we can open the file, the actual file itself. This is what the script actually says. So here's the raw capture. Everybody know what's happening here? But I apply a roaming filter, and basically we pull the same thing that the other PCAP tool is pulling out. But now you can really dig in and see what's going on. So you can look at all the lovely information that Wireshark can give you. The other thing too is that we also do, like I've been talking about, the PAL telemetry. When I did the series, we didn't have, octoScope hadn't developed the PCAP analysis tool, and and Lee and I had some discussions of, I go, I can do this. I don't think this is that interesting, but I'd have to take this CSV file. I then have to determine, okay, where are the roaming events? Okay, here's the BSS ID. Now we see that, it's scanned, it changed. And again, this is all information you pull out of the PAL. So you can see here that this is, once it starts scanning, there's a separate field that tells you what the roam status is, not just whether it's associated. You have the regular status over here, it's still associated, but then when it really breaks, that changes to scanning. And then tells the scan channel. It tells you the congestion level, again, my favorite. And look how the congestion level is rising, right? We're at 98, 97. So this is just as the connection's ready to break. The other thing too is we can look at the throughput. And then the attend 1, attend 2 don't really come from the PAL, of course, but they're part of what I throw into the log file. So this is another simplistic view. It's also a good thing to sometimes just sanity check what's going on, give you another view. So that's one roam. So, yep, it works. The God shined upon us. I'm happy. So let's look at some of the other captures that I've done to show some more interesting events. And actually, if we look earlier, I did some captures earlier today. And this is the Google. I'm running traffic. And then this time it actually, in the end, it went to 5. And you can also, though, see some events, a little more negotiation going on in the early part. A lot of authentications, association requests, a little back and forth, lots of back and forth, and then finally it goes. But again, because we don't have any band steering, we don't have any V or K or V involved. I don't know why it went to 5, but it did go to 5. All right, so you can see that. Another one we did earlier, this was a much more interesting one. A lot of events occurring before traffic was actually able to run, and this time it associated on 5. And then, so it did channel 149 on the first node, channel 149 there. The other thing we can look at is, and this is another nice classic sort of 2.4 roam. Let's look at some of the other ones that I did. Oh, this is a sticky. So here's one in which I set the roam threshold and the roam target to -95. So that's to emulate a sticky, client that has no roaming threshold. It's old school. It doesn't know nothing about roaming, and it's just going to stay where it's connected. And so, but in this case, so DC00 is the first one. It was able to roam. But I've also seen roams, and there's those de-auths again to 149. Don't know why that's happening. So let's look at some of the other ones. This is a Orbi, and it's with a Windows station. And again, one of the reasons why I wanted to use a Windows station is because according to Intel and according to Windows, this particular, the Intel AC 8260 supports KV and R in Windows 10. I, however, could never see any evidence of it supporting R. Now, I'm told that sometimes if the AP, and by the same token, Orbi doesn't support, and I was testing these things with Orbi, so Orbi doesn't support R. And I'm told by Dennis that many times if the AP does not advertise R availability, the station won't raise its hand and say, I can support R either. So anyway, I have never yet to play with R in the consumer world. But here you can see the Windows Station. You can see starts out on, this one's pretty interesting. It starts out on 40. Has a roam event, goes to 6. Where is it? Goes to 6 for a little, it's easy to see from the table. Starts out on 40, goes to 6, goes back to 40, spends some time on 40 for a while, and then when it roams again, it goes back to 6. Roams back to 6. Now, some of the interesting here is you see some new things. Radio measurement. Action frames. Action frames radio measurement means that's 11K activity. And to see specifically what that is, we have to get onto the packet capture. The tool right now doesn't attempt to duplicate what Wireshark is doing. It's, again, just sort of saying, here's some interesting places to look. Packet 2787, open up Wireshark and, have at it. And I think I did that. Is it here? Yeah. So we should be able to go to 2787, and there's the action event, and we can see it's a radio measurement request. And then followed up by the neighbor report response. So, hey, K works, or at least K is trying to work, in this case, between the Orbi and between the Windows Station. The other thing we see is that, so we'll get this out of the way. If we see later, down towards the end, we see action frames again, but this time it's WNM. Those are 11B BSS transition management requests. So that should be what? 13841, 13841. Yep, BSS transition management request. And I asked my friends at Netgear, how do you decode this just non-decrypt string? And basically I'm told you the BSS address starts at the 5th digit. So that says it's suggesting that it go to 08028089F39C81, which is one of the nodes that it actually ended up going to. So that's pretty cool. I mean, it really helps you very quickly home in on, first of all, it lets me tell, am I seeing creative marketing on the part of the people selling these things, right? Is it doing what they say it's doing? If someone says it supports K and V, is it actually supporting K and V? And if it is, how well is it doing it? What aspects of K and V is it supporting? And it really helps you, like I said, home in. Now here's another capture, and this one is with the Android tablet. You can see the signal levels are very low. This is a 1x1N radio. It's got, it's in a, well, where is it? It was in the cabinet. So there's a lot of path loss. So there's not a lot of, doesn't take much for it to roam. But here we can see authentications, disassociations, reassociation requests. It's funny, you don't see a lot of reassociations, a lot of associations, and reassociation tends to be something that I haven't seen a lot of in the consumer stuff. But here, action frames, so radio measurement again, so that's 11K, and then some deauths. So I didn't, this capture does not show any 11B activity. But you can see, it moves from 39C5 to it roamed, and then roamed back again. But these are, again, channel 6, channel 6, channel 6. So anyway, and I've got more. Here's one in which another Orbi capture, and this was a sticky, setting the PAL to be sticky. So again, setting the roam threshold and the roam target to -95 for both, and it just hangs on for dear life and does not go anywhere until it comes back, and finally there's dissociation, and then it decides to go to 40. Why does it do that? Well, it did that because It was told to action frames. So there's some basically, this is again the BS 11V transition, BSS transition management request. And it says, please go to 40, and it actually did. So anyway, you can see lots of fun. And that's basically my little story. So questions. Thank you.